Hello from Miami, Florida, site of Super Bowl 44 for this Super Bowl edition of Outside the Huddle. I'm Kim Holden. A lot of events leading up to the big game here on Sunday. For the Saints, the first big event was Media Day on Tuesday. It has become one of the NFL's signature events for this championship week. Now, rarely does it produce any real news. It does, however, get bigger and bigger every year. And for more on that, let's go to Outside the Huddle's Ro Brown.
Well, thank you, Kim. I am here at Radio Row at the Convention Center in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Radio Row, well, it's a spot where just about every national radio sports talk show does its show here live during Super Bowl week. It's a who's who. You can see just about anyone here. We ran into Joe Montana, of course, the Hall of Famer of the 49ers. Phil Simms, he won a Super Bowl with the New York Giants. And Barry Sanders, one of the greatest running backs of all time. You can come over here and get story after story. Now, for the first time, the National Football League decided to play the Pro Bowl 1 week before the Super Bowl. So as far as the league is concerned, Super Bowl week got underway Sunday. But the traditional start of Super Bowl week is Tuesday, Media Day. That's the day when the press gets a shot at both teams, every player, every coach. They filed into the room and into the lion's den. This is what the Saints and the Colts faced 5 days before kickoff. 2,000 members of the media crammed into a room, dispensed in little pockets around selected players placed on risers. Obviously, those in demand like Coach Sean Payton drew larger crowds. Players like Drew Brees and Peyton Manning attracted even larger groups of questioners. It can be a mind-blowing experience for even a veteran media member, but first-time Super Bowl Media Day observer like Hokie Gaja.
It looks like the stock market, just people going around everywhere. When Peyton Manning comes in and sits at the podium, it's just like a herd of ants just jumping on something. This is wild.
There's not much new coming out of this day, so we start interviewing each other. But the players do it too. Offensive lineman Jamar Nesbitt grilled teammate Jabari Greer for selfish reasons.
Basically just trying to get him to say my name out in the public, just to see what happens.
Perhaps Saints defensive end Bobby McRae had the most interesting experience of Media Day. It came in the form of an apparent ritual.
You're going to inflict the pain, 93.
I like the sound.
Inflict the pain, feel the bamboo.
Smoke. You see you smoking?
I'm smoldering.
I like it.
Oh, yeah.
I like it, baby.
You're the man. Thank you, 93.
Yes, sir.
Much love all the time.
Baby.
All day.
Cali.
All day.
Yeah,
All day.
All right.
All day, McRae.
So like the price of a ticket to the Super Bowl Media Day has not only grown, but it's changed with the times, for better or for worse.
If you like it, then you should have put a ring on it. If you like
It used to be more football questions, and now it's entertainment. It's media has become more of the spectacle as much as the players are. It's still fun. It's a circus. It's a hard place to try and get, quote, craft a real story. It's a different beast now than it was back in the 90s.
Now, for the first time, Media Day was held indoors because of heavy rains in South Florida during the early part of the week. And of course, they had to paint the field to get it ready for Sunday. Now, if you're one of those people who feels that the national media is going overboard talking about Peyton Manning and the Indianapolis Colts while overlooking Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints, well, perhaps you're not alone. We talked to a future Pro Football Hall of Famer and a guy who is already in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and it appears they feel your pain. The NFL Network looms large over the proceedings of Super Bowl week, so we went to a couple of the network's employees to get their impressions of Super Bowl 44. And if you think there's an anti-New Orleans feeling, well, not so fast.
The number one scoring offense in the league is not the Indianapolis Colts. I think the number one scoring offense the last 2 years is the New Orleans Saints, led by Drew Brees. And I think a lot of people are forgetting that. This guy has played extremely well since he's been there. His numbers are better than Peyton in the last 4 years.
Like Drew Brees, Rod Woodson is a Purdue University graduate, so he admits a little bias, but not enough to sway his pick of a winner this Sunday, at least not yet.
I'm torn. I haven't made a decision who's going to win yet. I think it's going to be a great game. I don't think anybody's given the Saints a real shot, deep down inside, but I think it's going to be a better game than people believe it's going to be.
Future Hall of Famer Deion Sanders is more emphatic about his prediction.
I like New Orleans because I think Sean Payton is unbelievable, especially when you give him 2 weeks to prepare. I think he's one of the best play callers in the game. I think he has a tremendous quarterback in Drew Brees, and both defenses are bad. It's going to be a high-scoring game.
Now it appears both of those guys feel the Saints will be winners after Super Bowl 44 is all said and done. Kim will be back later on in the show with a look at the Indianapolis Colts and, of course, the homeboy, Peyton Manning. Back to you.
Thanks, Ro. When we return to Outside the Huddle in Miami, Food at Nation honors a local broadcasting legend with a unique Super Bowl parade. And a little New Orleanian will have a hand in getting Super Bowl 44 started. But first, here are our Saints notes, courtesy of Louisiana Machinery. Outside the Huddle on CST is brought to you in part by your local Southern Quality Ford dealer, by Calco Travel, affordable luxury, unparalleled service, by Eric Hill Nissan in New Orleans East, buy from a Tiger, by Louisiana Machinery, service you can count on, and by micrografthairrestoration.com. Welcome back to the Super Bowl 44 edition of Outside the Huddle from Miami. You've heard a lot about the NFL Play 60 program for kids during the season. Well, it's the league's initiative to support youth fitness, basically try to get kids to stay active for at least 60 minutes a day. The NFL and the Cartoon Network have partnered together to select the Play 60 Super Kid. She's a young lady from New Orleans, and she was chosen before the Saints ever won the NFC Championship.
7-year-old Wesley Warren of Metairie was the star of the Play 60 Kids Day at Sun Life Stadium in Miami. She got a week in South Florida free, courtesy of the National Football League, and she'll hand off the ball to the referee to start Super Bowl 44. Wesley got the nod as the Play 60 Super Kid after having her essay on fitness judged tops out of 20,000 entries.
The question was, how do you be fit and why? Which NFL player inspires you to be fit and why? And so I said Drew Brees, because he have done so much for my city to help New Orleans. And it made me and my friends want to go play outside and have some fun.
And in the midst of this special experience for this loquacious little lady, she knows how to drive home the message of Play 60.
Stay healthy, live better, and eat healthy food. That's what I gotta say. Don't forget to play outside. That's a really important part.
Drew Brees is one of the league's player spokesmen for the Play 60 program. You may remember he even shot a PSA on the White House lawn with President Obama back in November. Legendary sportscaster Buddy Diliberto's career spanned half a century in print, in TV, and radio. He once said if the Saints ever reached the Super Bowl, he would dance in the streets wearing a dress. Well, unfortunately, Buddy D passed away back in 2005, so he's not around to see the Saints in the Super Bowl. But his successor at WWL Radio decided to follow through for the late Buddy D, and he was not alone. For more on that, we go to Dawn Ostrom.
That's not just any guy sporting a sparkly dress. That's Hall of Fame quarterback Bobby Hebert. He gave the rallying cry to Saints fans to live out broadcaster Buddy D's promise to parade in a dress.
Buddy D would not believe it. The Saints are going to the freaking Super Bowl.
Who that? Who that saying gonna beat them Saints?
Sunday afternoon, men of all shapes, sizes, and colors, and even a few boys sported their Sunday finest and paraded from the Superdome to Bourbon Street.
They were expecting perhaps 5,000, not thousands and thousands of black and gold faithful, all unified around a man wearing a dress.
Some estimates put the crowd at well over 85,000. Marchers, a dancing troupe, and thousands of people enjoying a sun and suds-filled good time. It was so crowded, the parade all but stopped on Bourbon Street.
It just shows you how much they love the Saints, and it's all a part of Saints history because, you know, they're so passionate about their team.
Buddy D was there in spirit. The actual dress he would have worn paraded too.
Everybody's been listening to Buddy D since we were kids, since we were 12, 13 years old. We all been calling him in. We loved him. He's gone. Bobby's doing a great job. Hey, who dat? It took us 43 years to be here. We gonna be there.
43 years.
We gonna be
and
here.
we here now. And we never leaving. Who dat?
This is incredible. This is what we've been waiting for forever.
And this is for Buddy D, baby.
For Buddy D. Bring the wood.
Parish presidents, businessmen, even a horse joined in the dress-wearing fun.
If we go to the Super Bowl every year, I'll wear a dress every year.
Who that?
For Outside the Huddle, I'm Dawn Ostrom.
Buddy D would have been proud of not only the Saints, but the parade. It's estimated 85,000 people lined the streets from the Superdome all the way to the French Quarter. Well, we are in Miami with the Saints in their quest for the title World Champions. After the break, the Saints in the Super Bowl has a special ring to this Saints fan. We'll tell you why. But first, here are our NFL notes sponsored by Calco Travel. Thanks for joining us from Miami, Florida, as the Saints shoot for a victory over the Indianapolis Colts in Super Bowl 44. You know, it's fitting that the Saints and the Colts would be in the Super Bowl. After all, they had the two best records in the league, and it's a matchup of the two best quarterbacks in the NFL. Adding more luster to the story, the quarterback of the Colts grew up a Saints fan. Let's go back to Outside the Huddle's Ro Brown.
Thank you, Kim. The Indianapolis Colts have been perhaps the winningest team in the National Football League over the last decade. So if the Saints win this one, they won't back into it, they'll earn it. The Colts have been the best in the AFC, the Saints the best in the NFC. That's the way it's supposed to be. The Saints defense has physically beaten two Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So the question is, will Peyton Manning be the third?
Yeah, it's important to be physical with them, but you look at a guy that doesn't get sacked a lot, he doesn't get hit a lot, he gets the ball out quickly, his offensive line does a good job, and I mean they're facing good defensive line rushes, blitzes, the whole nine.
As far as Pro Bowl safety Darren Sharper is concerned, what matters most about the Colts offense is not just Peyton Manning and his weapons, it's the pace of the no huddle.
I think it just kind of tires you. You're not able to substitute. And bring in different packages to try to match up with what the packages that they have, the personnel that they have in the game. Does wear you down a little bit, the interior guys, and also on the back end because you don't really get a breather.
You look at the Colts defense, and it appears the Saints could be in for a good day offensively. But don't underestimate a group that was at least good enough to win the AFC.
But their defense is a great defense. I mean, they've got guys up front that wreak havoc on other teams' quarterbacks, and that makes it easy, I think, for the secondary to make plays. I mean, those guys feed off of each other. They're a complete unit. Their linebackers are fast. The whole defense is fast. We got to do a great job out there.
Fast, perhaps, but it's been hit with injuries in the secondary, not to mention youth.
But when you watch it on film, they don't play like young players. I mean, they're playing like, vets and like guys that have been here in big games before. And, you definitely can't take that for granted. We have to make sure that we're on our P's and Q's and go take care of business.
Perhaps it's an advantage for the Colts that the game is being played here in South Florida. 4 trips to the Super Bowl for that franchise, all 4 games played right here in South Florida. They're 2-1. Perhaps the Saints will make them 2-2. Now, let's take a look at this week's Micrograph Hair Restoration.com injury report. It's a relatively healthy bunch. Running back Lionel Hamilton missed practice time this week with an ankle injury. Jonathan Vilma and Jeremy Shockey were limited with knee problems, as was cornerback Randall Gay with a foot injury. Kim, that's it from my side of town here in South Florida. We're at Radio Row in Fort Lauderdale at the Media Center. Now back to you at the stadium.
Thanks, Ro. The Saints have had 2 owners in the 43-year history of this franchise, John Mecum Jr. and Tom Benson. Needless to say, both are excited about the Saints' first ever trip to the Super Bowl. But there's another important person in the history of the franchise whose perspective of this historic moment is worth hearing.
Are you going to shoot for the name Saints now?
Yes, I am.
Dave?
Yes, I am. I certainly am.
Well,
definitely. I tell you why. Simply because it's a great ad that would be working for the pro club every day of the year. 100 times a night in the French Quarter, when the Saints go marching in.
That was Dave Dixon on the day the New Orleans Saints were born. This is Dave Dixon today, 44 years later, and the man who was most responsible for bringing pro football to New Orleans says when Garrett Hartley connected on the field goal sending the Saints to the Super Bowl, his celebration was delayed.
I looked all around for flags. And so when I didn't find a flag, I said, did it really go right through the middle of that thing? And I said, my God, we're in the Super Bowl. I just thought of it as a great accomplishment for the people of New Orleans after so many years of this and that and disappointments and so forth. And now here we were right at the pinnacle. And wasn't that a wonderful feeling? And didn't we deserve it? And the answer says, yes, you did deserve it.
In the early 60s, Dave Dixon sold pro football in New Orleans to politicians like John McKiffin and Chet Morrison. No easy task, but the man with vision and grand ideas got it done. And by September of 1967, when John Gilliam returned the opening kickoff against the Rams for a score, New Orleans scored and entered the big leagues. Prior to his death in 1964, New Orleans Mayor Chet Morrison was pursuing a Major League Baseball team.
I said, Chet, you've got the wrong sport. I said, we already have a magnificent football stadium in place in Tulane Stadium, and I'd bet my bottom dollar that we can get Tulane Stadium. I think the university would be glad to have it for such a purpose. And he said, well, go get me a Major League pro football team. Go get me an NFL team.
He did, and the rest is history. You'll be hard-pressed to find a New Orleanian who has had a greater lasting impact on the city than Dave Dixon. All you need to do is look at the big building in the 1500 block of Poydras. That, too, was his idea. But the franchise he loves is in the Super Bowl, representing the city he loves even more. He likes the home team's chances.
Yeah, I think they'll win by a touchdown to 10 points. I think it's, I don't know how they will do it exactly, and I know that Peyton is almost certainly the best football player ever to lace up his shoes. He's a great player and a magician and so smart. But Sean Payton is pretty smart too. And Drew Brees is very smart also. And so I think that we're a match for them.
Dave Dixon has had a lasting effect on the sports world outside of New Orleans. He was the founder of the World Championship Tennis League and the United States Football League. We'll be back with more Outside the Huddle, but first, here's our question of the week, sponsored by Eric Hill Nissan. Outside the Huddle on CST is brought to you in part by your local Southern Quality Ford dealer, by Calco Travel, affordable luxury, unparalleled service, by Eric Hill Nissan in New Orleans East, buy from a Tiger, by Louisiana Machinery, service you can count on, and by micrografthairrestoration.com. Welcome back to Outside the Huddle, on location in Miami, Florida, site of Super Bowl 44. The Saints have already picked up one victory over the Indianapolis Colts by winning a prestigious award that carries the name of a Hall of Fame coach.
It's a big trophy presented to a group of big guys. The New Orleans Saints offensive line beat out the Indianapolis Colts offensive line to become the first ever winners of the John Madden Most Valuable Protectors Award. It recognizes the NFL's best offensive line based on regular season performance, fan voting, and input from a panel of experts, including Hall of Fame coach John Madden. The award is presented by Prilosec OTC.
It's great, it's good. It shows, it's a trophy that we all can share together, so it's awesome.
What does it say about you guys? Madden picked you guys as the best offensive line in the league.
Hey, and Madden knows what he's talking about, so hey.
And Drew Brees may have finished second to Peyton Manning in the Most Valuable Player poll, but for the second consecutive year, Drew is the FedEx Air Player of the Year, beating out Peyton Manning for the award. It comes with a $25,000 donation in his name to the New Orleans area Safe Kids USA Coalition.
That's our Super Bowl 44 edition of Outside the Huddle. We will be back again next week to report on the Saints' victory over the Indianapolis Colts. Thanks for watching Outside the Huddle. I'm Kim Holden.